as I was flying along, it was like I felt like I'd been released from a hot, dark, stuffy closet and I'd been locked in there. And I was this huge expanded cloud. And it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain and it was running through every nerve. And it was absolute euphoria.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel within. Today, I'll be talking with Bill Letson, and I am excited to delve into his NDE. And welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for joining me today so we can have a conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Mira. This is wonderful. I'm honored to be invited.
Okay, awesome. So, why don't we start with life before your NDE? Giving us a little bit of context and background about that?
Yeah, I grew up in California on the coast and really normal, but super wonderful childhood, parents, sisters, uh, surfer buddies, and we were all athletic. We're the swim team and all that stuff. And it was, we got into a lot of trouble too. So we weren't angels. But yeah, it was awesome. And I've been around this area mostly. I was in the Sierras for a few years with a Forest Service job. But I sort of gravitated back to, as my parents got older, to be near them and to be, their guy, their advocate. And so that was important to me and it worked out really good. Um, so Yeah, I worked with the Forest Service. I worked on fire crews and backcountry ranger stuff and helicopters, and um, I did that for years and years. I loved it. And then I got a job with Santa Barbara County Fire Department in the 80s, and that's a wonderful job. And so a big part of that job was medical emergencies. And in 1994, we went to a medical emergency. It was during a flu epidemic, and it was the Beijing flu. You can look it up. It was a CDC thing where it actually got the title, got the rating epidemic. And there's a couple of NDEers out there that were in that same thing. It kind of swept through the Western states. And anyway, we were running calls and I was on a paramedic engine. And we went to a call down in Santa Barbara, and the neighbors were like, "Our neighbor's in there. We haven't seen her in days. She's super sick." And, all the indicators were she was home. Uh, so we said, "Good enough for us." So we kicked the front door in, and she was in the back. And that was a good call on the neighbor's part because um, she wasn't going to live much longer. She wasn't going to live through that night, I'm sure. And she was right at the edge of, passing away. And we jumped into action and did all our stuff. And my part was get the oxygen on her. And so slid across the bed. And as I was adjusting the mask, she kind of came out of it and exhaled, really powerfully right into my face because I was like over her adjusting. And I was taking a breath in and talking to the medics, and I took it all the way in, and I go, man, this is not going to work out good. But we got her into the ambulance, got her to the hospital. She came home in a week or so, and so it was it was a good save. And and then I mean, I was sick within a day. I could feel it that night, but within a day, I was really sick, and within 2 days, I was like her. I was uh, not long for the world. And so I called for help, and Santa Barbara County came, and the medics came, got me in an ambulance, got some IV started, got me to the hospital. And the place was full of people because that's what had been coming in waves. And so there was all kinds of people with the same flu. And so I was put in a room, and eventually a nurse came in and they were pushing the same like load of drugs for everyone, trying to keep everybody happy until they could get to them. And so she came in, and I think that I looked like a young, healthy fire guy, but physiologically, I was spent, I was shot, and I came in there on my knees. And anyway, she pushed the drugs into the, she was in a hurry. She was a good lady, good nurse, but she pushed it into the IV, the injection port, and it was immediate. My wife said it was, we thought you were clowning around because there was firemen in the room and stuff. And she pushed it in, and my eyes rolled back, and I fell straight back on the bed and was gone. And they couldn't get a blood pressure. And the highest she heard was 40 over zero. And they came in and hit me with Narcan uh, to um, to get rid of the Nubane effect. Nubane was like a new synthetic morphine, and it didn't it. I read up about it recently. Somebody asked me, but it didn't have any euphoric effect, and it didn't have any hallucinogenic effect like morphine has. And that's why they were so excited about it and pushed it out into the market. But then all these people just were keeling over because it hit them so hard, and it was a pain reliever. Um, but anyway, I went out cold. I didn't come back, and the highest blood pressure my wife heard was 40 over zero, and um, and she said they were real worried about that. They didn't know why I was so far gone and why, and I didn't come back all night. I was just teetering on the edge for like 12 or 13 hours in up in intensive care. And sometime during that night, this was like 3:30 in the afternoon when this all happened, but it seems to me it was sometime in the night, if I had to guess. Um, I was out of my body. I was gone. And the first thoughts I had was, what the heck was that? Um,
So
Meaning,
you so were
yeah,
you hovering or were you just somewhere else?
I was flying through stars. Um,
Um,
like when you watch Star Trek and they're looking at the screen and the stars are flying by. And yeah, I was flying through stars like that. And it was just this incredible welcoming, this incredible expansion, this feeling of freedom, like I was a giant cloud. And I could not get over the fact that I believed I was this dude, this Bill Letson. And that was the biggest thought at the beginning was how in the world did I believe I was that guy? Um, because it was really obvious that it was not even real. It was a game that we play, and everything that was Bill, all his dislikes, judgments he had, his bias, all of it was just like a joke. It was like a humorous thing that it was like, wow, that was a really good illusion. Um, and you really got me. I fell for it. And because I was absolutely, I was Bill. And I'd been Bill for that time, 38 years. And, I was pretty convinced I understood the world and all that. And um, I didn't know anything. And that was the reality. Uh, but I did know from the other side, I did know that this is a game. It's a simulation, a hologram, an illusion. It's a play, organic movie. I don't know. You can put any title you want to it, but it is
it's not
yeah.
real.
Yeah, it's not real. It's not real from where we come from. And the funny thing is here we've got all these answers. We've got science and history and religion and mainstream screens. When we watch a screen, that is like that's how the universe communicates through moving pictures. And so we just accept it as real. And so all these things where everybody's watching these screens now, um, with the whole thing with like a science and religion and all that, yeah, it all works. There's a thing called gravity and there's physics, but it works within the hologram. It's those are parameters of the hologram. Um, they're baked into the simulation, but they're not real, which, it sounds crazy, but so anyway, the real world, the real universe is feelings. And the feelings that I had from all these stars, these orbs, they were all around me, flying past me and reaching out. And it was nothing but welcoming and praise and acceptance and joy. And, they were sort of reassuring me that, okay, you're back where you belong. And they were doing that with love, love from every direction. And, that's what we all have to look forward to once we, learn to get over ourselves. And somehow some essence of us grows and then we return to that place. Um, and we graduate this place. But as I was flying along, it was like I felt like I'd been released from a hot, dark, stuffy closet and I'd been locked in there. And I was this huge expanded cloud. And it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain and it was running through every nerve. And it was absolute euphoria, absolute ecstasy. Felt it in every cell, I guess that's how we could understand it. Every cell was, I heard one NDE say this, every cell was giggling. And that is absolutely accurate. Um, it was like a cosmic orgasm. And it wasn't just a moment. That was the full-time vibration that you were just this euphoric being and in this limitless place where there was nothing but love and acceptance and connection. And I don't know, that's pretty good news, I think. So I was flying along and I was thinking, man, I could do this forever. This is awesome. And I was starting to realize that it's coming back to um, that this was home. And then everything shifted again. And then I was in this it was like a facility. And I've always said this, that it had indirect lighting. And
What
recently,
does that mean? What does that mean, Bill?
well, recently I've started, I say a lot of things that aren't really something coming from me. They just, I don't know. They're like downloads that were highlighted. And so I always said indirect lighting. And so there weren't any lights in the room. There were no light switches. You couldn't look across the room and say, oh, there's a light that's lighting up this table. Everything was lit. Everything was light. Uh, the other side is light. It's all energy. And there are places, there are experiences that we have that are just as real as here, but they're in the light. And if people can get their head around that, but this place is also all light. That we talk about electrons, an electron cloud. That's just light. If you zoom in and you try to find something solid in a atom, you get to the proton and the neutron. It's just faster spinning stuff, and there's nothing there. It's just spinning light. Um, so the place we come from is like a hologram that's being projected here, and it's cooked up into this reality that we're in, this physical world reality. And it's like I said, it's a really good illusion. Um, this is what I think rocks people when I say this, is that our bodies, our physical bodies, are part of the illusion. They stay here in the illusion, and we energetically, zoom out of here, like a lot of people talk about. And even our what draws us into the behavior that we have in this life, what interests us, that's all scripted with the birth chart, astrology. That all that stuff is extremely accurate. So yeah, I was in this room and like I said, it was made of light, but it was also a structure. It was like a facility or a clinic, and there's equipment there, and there was beds, and there was right in front of me there were these three short little hooded guys, and they were smiling from ear to ear, and they were giggling, and they were just kind of all of a sudden on me, bouncing towards me. And they were saying things like, "How was it? What did you learn? What can you tell us?" And I was just looking at him. I wasn't fearful because fear did not exist anymore. That's part of this place. I was just a little confused. Suddenly I was in this room, and one of them picked up on it, and he kind of bounced forward towards me and looked me up and down. And he turned to the other two and he goes, "He doesn't remember us." And they all started giggling, and they thought that was hilarious. And I was like, "Well, give me a few minutes, you guys. This is very strange. I just got here, and um I don't even know where I was a second ago. That was a very strange place too." And so uh they continued to chuckle, and they were like slapping each other on the back. It was like the Three Stooges or something, and giggling and bouncing around. And then there was another guy in the background, and he was kind of letting this all play out. And then he came forward, and he was tall, and I've called him the tall, wispy guy. And he was like a spinning vortex of energy. Um, if you take a jar of water and spin it super fast, and you get that vortex, and you look at it from the side, that's what he looked like. He had this vortex-like thing, and I've called him a Gumby. I'm trying to explain it to people in material, solid form. Um, but there wasn't anything really solid about him. It was like he was underwater, made of spinning energy or liquid or something. And he looked exactly like the in the movie What Dreams May Come. He looked exactly like Cuba Gooding. Um,
Yes.
it's like in the first few minutes after Robin Williams dies, and then I think he's still in his apartment or something, and Cuba Gooding shows up, and he comes up and he spins over here, and then he kind of dances and spins over there, and his face will be there, and then it won't be, and that's exactly what I saw. It was hard to get a fix on him, um, but I was seeing parts of a human or parts of a being, and he had all this energy to him.
What did you look like over there?
I got a feeling that I looked somewhat like myself, in some energetic form, maybe without feet and legs. Um, but that would just be they knew exactly who I was, and they were looking right at me, all of them, when they had talked to me. And so I was something. Um, but I wasn't a human being. That that was absolutely um, determined the second that I found myself flying through the stars. It's like I was not a human being anymore. That had been a really hard thing to do, and um, I was well aware my body was behind, and to me, it was like something you'd throw away, like a banana peel. And um, I didn't give it any thought at all. It was like, do whatever you want with that thing. And I certainly am not ever getting back in it. That was, uh, that was a really hard experience. And so that's what as far as what I looked like, I wasn't a human. Um, but I was still Bill somehow. Um, and that's a good thing that there was it was a seamless, um, transition. It was flawless and seamless. And that's why a lot of NDE people, they won't even know they're dead, and they'll tell you their story, and they'll just be cruising along in some other place, just going with the flow, and never really um, realized that the human they'd been had died. It's that seamless. It's that effortless, transitioning. So the tall, wispy guy, he came forward, and that spin that he had, that energy, as it got close to me, it just poured through me, and it was just this immense love. Uh, he had a big smile on his face and bright eyes, and you could tell he was super happy uh, that I was there, and super happy. And as he got closer, my chest felt like it was expanding and it was going to pop, and my throat constricted like I was in a movie, and you're watching a dog reunited with his master or something, and you're trying not to, tear up. But I felt like I was going to fall to my knees and start crying uncontrollably, um, from joy, from love. And I just had to tell myself to just hold it together, man. Um, don't don't lose it. Just like being in the theater and a really good part in the movie shows up, and then he came forward, and there wasn't much, watching those guys. He was chuckling the whole time, and watching the three little guys, they were bouncing around, and he was watching them and chuckling, uh, and I'd like make some small talk or something, and then he'd laugh at me and chuckle some more, and they were giggling, and I was like, well, I'd like to get out of this place. It's obviously it's not some place that you stay. It's some kind of checkup station, or you know, and I think that's the confusion with alien abduction. I think we're just buffed out every now and again. We get checkups, and and that's what I think is going on. And I think that's where I was. I was in one of those situations on my way back. I didn't realize I was coming back here, but I was shown kind of the upper astral, I guess, and then I was coming down the middle astral, and I was on my way back. And the interesting thing is I had to go through the lower astral to get back in my body, and that left a really powerful impression. I talk about that um, when you get close to your body, that there are so many um, really low vibration energies um, in our earth plane around us. So yeah, I was watching those guys, and I thought, man, nobody's really organized this thing. It's not, nobody's getting anything done. And so I kind of spoke up, and I said, hey, you guys gonna flash my life before my eyes, or are you gonna we're gonna review, how I did, or you guys want to get started with that? And they all giggled, and the tall, wispy guy just cracked up. And he said, sure, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? And so I talked for a while. They were just sort of playing along with me, I think. And I talked about a few things about jobs and about my wife and stuff like that. And nobody was listening. They they didn't care. It it didn't, none of it meant anything. It was my experience, and there was no judgment that I experienced. And and they were doing the same thing, or chuckling and giggling, and half the time they're not looking at me. And then finally he just said, okay, that's enough. Time to go back. And I was like, what? Go back? Are you kidding me? That because I had forgotten about Bill. Um, and I was immediately unimpressed with the whole thing when I had left. And now I had to go back under all of that energy that is here, that our emotions generate. We carry these uh, energetic packages, these thought forms. We carry them in our energy, and they're just absolutely crushing. And that's why, um, getting coming to some kind of where you work through all these things that have happened in your life and you put them away. And that's the whole thing about this know yourself. When you come to know yourself, you understand that it's an illusion and it's a game and we're all friends on the other side. And whatever anybody does to you, it's not real. Nothing is ever, there's no permanent damage ever done, no matter what it is. It's, we're just playing a game. Um, so he told me I had to go back, and then he came forward, and I had all these excuses. And um, he said, "Okay, come on, you got to go back." And to push any further would have been, to me, it was out of the question because this was such a divine presence. And so I felt the room start to spin and come apart, and I watched him dissolve in front of me, evaporate. And then I felt a drop, like the floor dropped out from under me, like a trap door. And it was a drop in frequency, I'm pretty sure. And um, I was on my way back to another dimension, another plane, back to the earth realm. And and as I got down near my body, um, it was a really horrible feeling as all of that, what goes on here, all of that energy is loaded back into your awareness. And um, it's like crushing. And it's just outside of our body here. It's lonely and it's dismal, and you don't want to be there. And we talk about this, the valley of the shadow of death and the lower astral and um, hell. And this is where confused souls are, hungry ghosts, whatever you want to call them. They're they're still attached to the game, and they don't realize that they're out of the game. And that's that movie, The Sixth Sense. Um, that's what that's telling us. Movies are telling us who we are. If you uh, if you just zoom out a little bit and look at what the message is, and that little boy could see dead people, but none of those dead people were scary, ghostly things. They were just confused and they were still stuck. And then it turned out, at the end, Bruce Willis was one of them. And he didn't realize it through the whole movie. So
Yeah, it's almost as if the creatives they get to download either directly or they are inspired by a story, maybe of a family of a friend.
I like what you said right there. And I agree with that. Some people have said, well, what are you saying? That the movie industry is, conspiring against us, or, some kind of conspiracy theory or something like that. And I always say no. I think that creative people who are writing books and making movies and writing songs, they're getting a download. And we have thousands of souls around all of us all the time. And um, the whole, you and I have been talking, this whole thing is a simulation, it's a matrix, it's a hologram, and it's got a script. Um, and people are tasked with keeping the script online, keeping things moving forward, keeping the play going so that souls coming in here will have the challenges that they signed up for. And so that when you look at things like wars and you know, massive diseases and stuff like that, they're all, everything is orchestrated. And everything in our individual lives is orchestrated. It's I know that's hard to believe, but so yeah, I think a lot of people are going to start looking at these movies differently because there are clues absolutely everywhere. It's it's amazing how powerful the message is, and but there's balance too, and it's a small percentage, 10% or less of good news, and then there's a whole bunch of bad news, and there's some neutral news, and we're here, we have free will, we get to choose which news do you want to listen to. um, and I guess the news is going to get really bad for us in the next year or two, and um, I think a good idea is to just turn off the screens and go inside because, this is a wonderful gift. Life is beautiful and we should just cherish it. And then when we leave here, everything's just fine. Everything always has been fine. So,
I agree. Were you spiritual before the NDE? Because it seems as if you had a spiritual um, aha moment when you were out there flying through the cosmos.
yeah, I had a spiritual, divine, ecstatic, oh my God, we are so much more than we could ever imagine moment. And I was raised Catholic. And we got yelled at every Sunday. We had a priest, Father McGrath, and he was, kind of rough on everybody. And but I went through everything and uh, behaved myself most of the time. But as a kid, I was a surfer, and my buddies and I, we would be up at dawn and we would surf till the sun went down. Then we'd camp on the beach, and we'd eat good food and when I had to grow up and get a job, I was a forest ranger and I was in the backcountry and sleeping on the fire line. And, I was out of most of the human, um, structured environment most of the time. I was either surfing or I was out in the woods, trail
So
work or
you, so you're
cutting brush.
always in nature then, yeah, either in the ocean or in the forest.
Yeah, I've always been in nature. And now here with this place. We got a cabin in the woods and it's surrounded by water, lakes everywhere, and streams and hundreds of trees. And the wildlife just all lives here, peacefully. Deer are sleeping outside, just outside the front door. And yeah, I've just got this really profound connection to nature. I've always had it. And I think that's why I'm a spiritual person, because that's where that is the epitome of spirituality is nature. We were made by uh, the divine, and everything else that here that is natural is part of that work. And when you stay close to it, you stay close to um, spirit. That's what I think.
For sure. So back to those three little hooded guys. They remind me of DMT when, because I saw the DMT, this documentary.
Yeah, it was a major impact on me. I had my thing in '94, and when I got back, I told everybody that, there's this other side and we don't have no idea how wonderful it is and what we really are. And, after a while I was talking at work, and after a while the word came down, you sound crazy. And so I stopped. I said, yeah, I do sound crazy. I'm the craziest story you've ever heard. And so I kind of buttoned it up and zipped it until I retired. And if we were out on the fire line and somebody was talking about, their wife had cancer or something, when we were under the stars, I'd open up and I'd say everything's gonna be just fine. Don't worry about a thing. And I'd tell this story, and everybody would just The guys would just be like, "Whoa." But yeah, I kept it quiet until I retired in 2010, and then I'm having fun as a retiree, and then that video showed up on my feed. I never watched any drug related movies ever, but it was like, oh yeah, I gotta watch this. This looks great. And so uh it was interesting, but Rick Strassman jumped off the page at me, jumped off the screen at me. I'm like, there's that guy's got something. He he has something most humans don't have. I don't know what it was, but anyway, this recommendation that I should buy the book showed up through Amazon a week later, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like that guy. And so I got the book. And when I got around to chapter 13 and 14, it was called Contact Through the Veil, where his volunteers were describing my NDE, and nobody had ever had anything close to saying, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Um, but one volunteer after another with their accounts where they were in a facility and there were these short little disorderlies, these kind of clowny people, and then this taller guy that seemed to be in charge, but he wasn't really in charge. And it was a light comical thing, and only a couple people had a nightmare feeling about it. And I think this has everything to do with what you bring to the party. And if you're a young soul and you're still trying to sort out that fear thing, then you're on the other side, bingo bango. You think about it, you create it at the speed of thought. You're a creator. We're all creators. Um, and now you've got a nightmare scenario. And but mostly, um, they said it was remarkable. It was ridiculous. It was with these aliens, and they were friendly. And um, the most, I told you that the big comment that they said to me was, "He doesn't remember us," uh, and they thought that was funny. And the funny thing with Rick Strassman's group is a lot of them were like, when it was time to, the DMT is wearing off and they're starting to fade and is on his way back to their body, they would say, see you soon, don't forget. And this thing about forgetting. And Terrence McKenna, he would meet the same guys and they would, as soon as he'd have this breakthrough dose or something, and he said they'd be on him. They'd just come tumbling forward, and it's like, "Oh, it's so good to see you," and they're all friendly and stuff. And he said when he would, it would start to his, whatever his smoking it or whatever he was doing, would start to wear off, and they would go, they would sing this deja vu song, deja vu, and as they would fade. So in Straussman's thing, my thing, and his thing, there's this thing about remembering. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to remember who we are. And they're kind of entertained by that when we can't, when we're not remembering. And then when we remember, we move on and, we're done with this place. Um, but it's interesting that you um, picked up on that because I think that's key. That's absolutely key to our whole journey here is remembering who we really are.
That's a wonderful piece of advice because I feel like we take some kind of oath to forget, or we go through the veil, we forget, and over here we have to participate in remembering.
Yeah, you hear this a lot about children. Um, we have the mind of a child on the other side. We are playful and we know everything's fun and nothing's serious and nothing can harm us and we never die and we're like playful children. And when you can get back to that here, then you have earned your wings or the vibration that will get you back to where we come from.
Yeah, and speaking about children, they are closest to our true essence, and they are not conditioned yet by society. as you get older, you're told what to believe or how to act. And that's so true in terms of keeping that playfulness and also being closer to source or to the other side, you know? So that's key as well. How did life change for you after the spiritual experience or the NDE?
Well, there was the NDE, and then in the Straussman got me interested in DMT, and so I thought, well, got to figure this out. And, maybe I can pop back in where I was, and I'll have more clarity on what happened, 15 years ago. And so I was a natural, we naturally produce a DMT in our pineal gland, and it drops a little on the brain at night, and we soul travel. And at the time of death, it splashes the brain with the most of it is dumped onto the brain, and then we rock it out of the body and leave it behind forever in this life. Um, but to experience a DMT, crossing over using DMT, I thought, well, the most natural way is what the shamans are doing. So I started going to Costa Rica, and I was screwing around a lot. I was surfing and hanging out with friends, but I had an ear to the wind for something that would be um, compatible with how I saw it. If it was a legitimate shaman, um, not some guy, throwing a party, that sort of thing. And I was staying at this place, and it had come up once or twice, and then the lady who ran it, she said, "Hey, this tiger shaman from the Amazon, from Colombia, is going to be here, and we're going to have a ceremony out in the jungle, and it's in 6 weeks or something like that." I was down there. We were trying to build like a retreat type thing for people to get back to nature and live in the jungle. Um, and she said, "Do you want to reserve a spot?" I said, "Heck yeah, let's go for it." Um, and then the guys that I was out, we were out macheteing and stuff, cutting lines out in the jungle to make this place. But they're like, "Dude, do you have any idea what you're getting into? This is." And I go, "Well, yeah, it's kind of folklore, you know. It's just I just want to check it out. I don't think anything's going to happen." And they're like, "That is not folklore. That you're going to be, in other dimensions." And I still didn't believe it. That is how arrogant we are. And but anyway, so the ceremony came, and then it was it's wild, wild night. Um, and Yeah, it was out in the jungle. There was like, I don't know, a dozen people. This was 10 years ago. No, more. 12 years ago, 13 years ago. It wasn't quite as talked about then as it is now. And so he was absolutely genuine, the whole outfit, he's a tiger shaman. He had all these tiger teeth, claws on his and a huge headdress. And we're out in the jungle, and there was tiki torches that were burning, and we're in this pavilion, and it was lightly raining, and you show up at dark, and you set up your spot, and then uh, they show up a few hours later, and there's all this preparation, you eat certain ways and stuff leading up to it, and no alcohol, no drugs, nothing like that in your system. And And then you drink around 10:30, you drink the ayahuasca, and it takes about an hour for it to take effect. And the whole time I was like, we're going through it. And you had to go up, and you sat in front of him, and he looked at you really strange. Obviously, I know now he was looking at me with his third eye, and he could see the energy around me, and he could see how much of a healing dose I needed. And I got this big old chocolate shake glass. Nothing like in the movies where it's like a tea, it was, they called it yahe, really powerful um, ayahuasca. And so I just chugged it down. It was like four big gulps to get it down. And the whole time, and he's firelight, the whole time I'm going, this is so crazy that I'm even here. And these guys are, none of them spoke English. And I was just like giggling because it was like so cool. And, my dad had passed away. I go, man, if dad was here, he would just be hooting it up. Um, but I went and lay down, in my spot. And there was some people I knew that were around. And you're there all night. And, after about an hour, you throw up, you purge. And um, I started feeling this in my stomach and stuff, this like I was getting punched, in my liver and then in my other side. And I asked one of the helpers, I said, it's like, it's like I'm getting kicked and punched and it's really strong. And he said the ayahuasca is collecting all of the energies and it's going to expel it through your stomach and your lungs. And I'm like, really? I didn't believe that for a second. And but I could feel this energy being pushed inside my body. And like your stomach is moving and stuff. And so then about 45, 50 minutes into it, all of a sudden the ceiling just opened up and I was looking through a giant spiral, like a DNA, um, giant DNA just went off into the clouds. Even though there was a roof on this place, I was looking at stars with this spiral. And then there was this light uh, coming from this spiral. It was somehow alive, and there was these lights that were coming from different places, and there was a definite butterscotch or tangerine light that was just like drilling into my forehead, and I couldn't look away from it. And then there was this like rose light further up this spiral that came drilling. I mean, it was obvious communication um, through light. Um, And that's in the Straussman book that when we do DMT, it's not that we're rocketed out of our body, it's that we're rocketed back through our DNA, back through the light codes that, you know, come from where we come from, the light. Um, that's really super hard for people to understand. But I was absolutely looking up a spiral and light was coming from different places and it was doing things. Um, and I was like in a trance. I mean, I was out of it. And the next thing I remember, I woke up and I was on my knees over my bucket and I was just hurling, just explosive roaring sound. And I hadn't eaten anything. So it was just a little bit of liquid, but this incredible loud roar like a jet engine. And and what I saw come out of me during that roar was this. I hope you were ready to hear all this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, go for it.
I saw this bluish black like gel or mist or something. It came out of me, it bounced off the bucket and it went out onto the floor and it was spreading out and moving. And I was looking at that mist or gel or vapor or I don't know. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't anything that we understand. And it was moving across and I turned to my friends and I'm like, what in the world is happening? Because it was unbelievable. And they couldn't see it, but the shaman did see it. And he told his guys, go over there and take some fronds and sweep that out into the jungle. And they did. And I didn't get the courage it was a year later. I asked one of the guys that was a helper at the ceremony. I took him to lunch down there and I said, hey, what was that came out of me? And he said it was an energetic entity. It was past. traumas and dramas and energies that were making you ill. And that's why it's called a healing ceremony. And I told him I wasn't really sick or anything. And he said, no, it was holding you back. And I remembered that the day after that ceremony, I went running every day. I ran like 7 miles every day. And um, I ran my I I ran my normal 7 miles and I never got tired and I never got winded. And so I ran it again. And I didn't get tired and I didn't get winded. And I ran it again. And I left at like 8 in the morning and I was coming back around noon. And one of my buddies goes, "Where are you going?" And I go, "I can't get tired." And he goes, "You're gonna run it again?" And he goes, "Stop. Your body you can't just keep going." And I'm like, "I don't understand this." And he goes, "You cleared up a whole bunch of energies that were holding you back, and it's operating in your in the physical." And so you and I were talking about movies, and that movie, The Green Mile, with
Yeah.
anytime somebody got ill, he took the energy into himself and then he discharged it like
Yeah.
vomiting. That's exactly that movie is showing us exactly what we need to do is as far as clearing up those energies. And and we have no idea. I was, you know, fit and everything. I was in my 60s at the time, but I had no complaints. But I was really, compared to my potential, I was really held back by what was I was carrying. And I watched it leave. I absolutely watched it leave. And that was a real gift. And
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and the NDE as well, Bill. Truly remarkable.
yeah, you're
There,
welcome.
yeah, there are three questions I ask everyone. What brings you joy and laughter these days?
Being here in my home with all these wonderful animals that live here and um, the sweetness of my wife. And we've got this just natural setting, um, waking up before the sun and drinking structured water and watching the sun rise and doing the breathing, the 4 seconds in and hold it for 7 seconds and release it for 8 seconds. And you do that first thing. And I've got this stove out here that just burns natural wood. And so I'll go down there and cook everything, cook breakfast up on a natural wood and keep the power off around the house mostly. And and that's enough. I don't need anything else.
That's great. What structured water?
Structured water is so the water we get here in the States is we drill it out of the ground and then it goes through pumps and then it sits in tanks in the dark and then it goes through pipes and then it comes to the house and it's all kinds of treatments and stuff. But in the natural in nature, the water f falls from the sky and it absorbs the sun's energy. And then that's the divine electricity of the sun. And then it falls to Mother Earth and it runs along Mother Earth's magnetic love. Um, and it collects, you know, uh, in streams and in lakes and things. And in a natural setting, that's what we do. We go and bring water back to the village or whatever. And we give it some love. I hold the water and just tell them how grateful I am for everything and how much I love the water. Um,
I do that as well. So, what would you tell young Bill who's about to embark on the greatest adventures, on these wonderful adventures?
I would tell Bill, stay open and do your thing. Um,
I like
because
that.
because that was this whole discovery thing has been so much fun.
That's a beautiful message, Bill. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And I hope everyone listening enjoyed this as much as I did.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.